What's up, guys? Tommy Carrigan with Tommy Untamed. We've got an incredible guest today. Show starts right now. I'm with Mr. Judd Saul talking about the slaughter of Christians in Nigeria and how it hadn't been covered. And for me personally, I mean, aside from the fact that it's pure evil and should be covered, being banned from YouTube and iTunes in 2020, 2021 for interviewing a bunch of doctors, including the one who holds the patents to the mRNA vaccine, being banned for that, not even, violence or nudity or whatever, being banned for that has kind of irrevocably made me hate censorship in all forms. So even though it's much more important than censorship, it's slaughter of innocence. Deep in me, the one thing I truly hate is censorship. So even if you had emailed me and said, we're selling puppies and we're getting censored, I'd be like, get on the show. We're doing it. So I just hate censorship at its core. But more importantly is the slaughter of, I think, upwards of 200. I actually saw in my elevator, it's a new elevator, and there's like a little screen in it that flashes to the news. I actually saw coming up from the gym, they just started talking about the death toll in Nigeria. So it's getting out somewhere, just barely, but it should be. I mean, it should be on the front page of everything. You swap the religions with anything else, and it would be breaking news. President would hold the press conference. And that's not to put down those religions. That's to say that should happen across the board. Anyone gets slaughtered for their faith, it's 2025. This shouldn't be happening. But I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Mr. Saul.
Yeah, so what happened over Father's Day weekend in Nigeria, it's getting some press, but unfortunately the press that it's getting is completely inaccurate, and the whole thing has been whitewashed and downplayed. So what took place over Father's Day weekend in Nigeria, in a particular place called Benue State, Nigeria, was you had one section where, well, first of all, so your audience knows this, is that Nigeria is responsible for 90% of all Christian persecution deaths worldwide in the last 5 years.
That's insane.
There's been an ongoing genocide against Christians, and most people don't even know that that's going on. But there's an attack every other day, whether it's 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, but no one ever hears about those attacks. The reason you're hearing a little bit about this one is because it was over 100 people killed. But the mainstream media says it was 100 people killed. In reality, it was over 200 Christians that were killed. 100 of them were burned alive.
Gee.
They were rounded up, they were funneled, they were put into a building, and 100 Christians were burned alive in one building, in one setting. And then corresponding attacks around the area killed an additional 100. I think the death toll right now is about 224. And these are all Christians that were killed by radical Islamists. They came in shouting Allahu Akbar, macheteing people to death, shooting them to death, and they managed to round up 100 people in this one area, and they set them and they burned them all alive. And that is not being reported in the press. That is not being reported in any of this stuff. What the mainstream media is saying is that it's relegated to tribal violence because of lack of land resources, and they blame it on climate change. But they refuse to acknowledge and say the fact of what's going on is that radical Islamists have been slaughtering Christians in Nigeria for over 20 years, and it's only gotten exponentially worse, and they're taking over more territory. But it's politically incorrect for us to say that Muslims are killing Christians. They call it farmer-herder clashes. They totally whitewash the narrative, and that's why I'm trying to get out there, scream at the top of my lungs that Christians are being slaughtered by Muslims in Nigeria, radical Islamic terrorists. In particular, they are called the Fulani tribe. They came from up northern Africa, working their way down south into African countries, and everything they touch turns to crap, and they end up killing people and taking over territory.
Yeah, I mean, if that's farmer herder clashes, then Hiroshima and Nagasaki was a soy sauce clash. Like, it's not only it's one thing. I mean, obviously, the one thing to perpetrate the attack, pure evil, of course. It's another thing to intentionally misname it and mislead it.
Yes.
You see it all the time. Every time there's a stabbing on a subway in New York and it doesn't fit the narrative because it's some blonde haired, blue eyed white girl. It's always a deranged, knife wielding wacko. They'll say it like that. They'll be like, this wackadoodle went on the subway. And
Hmm.
no, call what it is. A grown man went and stabbed this woman. It doesn't matter what color she is, it doesn't matter what color he is. But by not addressing that, you are exponentially highlighting just how important it is what color it is. That's the one doing it. So to do the attacks, to not cover them, and then when you do cover them, say it's climate change. I mean, that is if it doesn't wake you up, the distillation of evil that is
Right.
to 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 not even. I mean, you cannot deny. I mean, look at the uproar with the South African refugees a couple weeks ago. It was like 80 people. There's something like
Yeah.
80,000 or 200,000 a month were coming over the border under Biden. 80, 80 people,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Yeah.
they're white and predominantly some subcategory of Christian.
Mhm. Yeah. They absolutely hated it and made a huge deal out of bringing in 80 people. Then I think another 50 people have come in. That's 130 people where we still have legal immigrants in legally entering the country by the thousands every day that are doing the regular process. They're getting the right paperwork in, they're getting processed, they're assimilating, becoming citizens. You don't hear any complaints about that. And but the whole, we want to talk about South Africa thing, is the problem there is that the media has covered up for many, 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 many years for the communist takeover of South Africa. And what they don't want to acknowledge is what South Africa has become is what, if BLM took control of our government, full control of our government, what's happening in South Africa would be happening in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't acknowledge that. They have to pretend that the glorious Nelson Mandela coming in and freeing the people and creating a new South Africa. Well, Nelson Mandela did a lot of terrorist activities. Nelson Mandela and his wife took part in putting tires around people's heads, filling them with
Yeah,
gasoline, setting them on fire,
pyres
and
of
having them run down
tires.
the streets.
Yeah, pyres of tires.
They call them the necklace. They call them necklaces, I believe is what it was called. But you look at a place what's going on in Nigeria, which our organization, we're a organization dedicated to helping persecuted Christians in Nigeria. That's what equipping the persecuted is. And time and time, we see the mainstream narrative get completely whitewashing what's happening on the ground. And this is something that the mainstream media does. I don't know why they're laying cover for evil, but I
Because
can
they're
tell
evil.
you, I can tell you right now that Sharia and the Islamists in Nigeria definitely censor the content and control the narrative.
They're covering for it because they're part of it. Like, that's one thing. It's taken me a long time. There, I've been doing the show 5.5 years, 1,768. I think this is. I no longer have the naivety of going, well, why are they doing that? If it's a third grader doing something, I go, well, it's a kid. They have braces. They don't know what they're doing. When it's something like this, I don't even give it the benefit of the doubt anymore. I go, you're covering up because you're either part of it, you're getting paid for it, or you ideologically agree with it, and or maybe you don't agree with it, but you just hate white people. And like you go down that road, and people start to well, I don't know if we can talk about it, and it's no, this is nothing but covering violence for what it is, man. Like, for what it is, and it's not even white people, it's Christian people. It's and what's happening in Gaza sucks. What happened on October 7th sucks. But there's no there's no nuanced discussion. You are either full just you are this way or you are that way, and anything else, it's like no, there's a huge middle ground where like the slaughter of innocents is bad. Maybe we can just all
Yeah.
agree on that. Can we like put that? Can we put that marble in the Venn diagram of things we agree with? Other good things. Sunrises are beautiful, and water is tasty. Like these are some basic things, but you can't do that. And to me, again, what the podcast has taught me is in general, if you cannot talk about something, and I don't mean the basics, inciting violence, telling people to go to a senator's home, nudity, child pornography, the basics, leaking national state secrets. If I have some schematic for a stealth bomber here, and Judd's like, "What are you doing, man?" No, not that, but I mean like the basics. Other than those, I have found doing this show that if you can't talk about something, and I don't mean like people don't like the show, doesn't get as many views, or there's hateful comments. I mean institutional, the platform that's hosting it, Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, whatever. When they shut it down, I've learned that that's exactly the thing you need to be talking about because there is
Yeah.
very intense reasoning to why they shut it down, whether they are themselves directly involved, complicit, or simply they agree with the ideology. So why are they covering it up? Because they're complicit or they agree with the ideology. I don't even, I think 5 years ago, I would have been like, well, let's dissect it. Let's look at the reporters. No, it means nothing to me now. I mean, you're demons from hell and you're participating in this.
Well, it means you're right over the target.
Correct.
When they start censoring you and they start coming after you, and it means you're right over the target of where you should be. And unfortunately, sometimes that can be a painful place.
Yeah. Yeah. But you and I are obviously very much we're seeing eye to eye on this, and so
Mhm.
what I do with shows is like we're both agreeing with each other, and that's awesome. But it's also I try to turn things into like what can people actually do. So like we can all sit around and talk about how dirty the street is, but at a certain point you have to be like, what are we gonna do about it? Let's all go out and maybe pick up 5 pieces of trash a day, and in a year it will be gone. So we're in agreement. I think it's a basic agreement that the slaughtering of
Mhm.
innocents and covering it up is not good. What can be done to actually help it for the average person listening, other than they get whipped up into a rage and then they have nowhere to go with it? What can they actually do? So if they're listening to this and they go, I want to help in whatever little way I can, like I get the email and I go, yeah, I
Yeah.
hate that. What in my mind I go, what can I do to help? Oh, I have a
Well,
podcast, I can have you on. What can the average listener do to help?
they can first they can support our organization at equippingthepersecuted.org. Partner with us. We're a boots on the ground mission that actually helps persecuted Christians. We don't just we're not an organization that goes and takes photo ops to raise awareness, which I've seen a lot of organizations do. We have a staff of 115 Nigerians on the ground that are responding to attacks within 48 hours. And we are working and responding to attacks every week. And they say, well, how do you respond to attacks? Food, medicine. We send in doctors. We treat the wounded. That's one of the things we've been doing a lot of lately is treating a lot of wounded and paying for the medical care of bullet wounds, machete wounds, um, trying to help people rebuild their lives back. And, you know, we need all the help we can get. You can go to equippingthepersecuted.org and support us there. The other thing you can do is we do need a better U.S. foreign policy objective. We need the U.S. To even just with words say stop killing Christians in Nigeria. Nigeria, we're on to you and we're paying attention. Unfortunately, when Biden took office, he took Nigeria off the terror watch list and would not acknowledge any atrocities going on there. Under Biden, that's what he did. Now Trump's back in office. We're trying to get Nigeria put back on a terror watch list. Country particular concern is what it is. But we do need U.S. intervention in some way, shape, or form. But even strong language would go a long way. So you get involved politically, but I would also ask you to come alongside us and support our mission at equippingthepersecuted.org. And then also talk about the problem. Let people know that Christians are being slaughtered in Nigeria. And it's not due to climate change, it's due to radical Islamists that are hell bent of turning Nigeria into its own Muslim caliphate.
And for everybody listening, I'll put the link to the description. I'll put the link to it in the description. Can people just donate? Is that, I look at me like, as somebody who's, I'm pretty much up to my eyeballs in commitments with the show. What always I like is when I see an organization, it's just donate here. I'm like, that's something I can do here and now, right? I can take
Yeah.
$5 and put it, other than, a thumbs up on a video, it's not nothing, but it's kind of nothing. So like something like this for people that like cannot get involved. They've got 5 kids, they got work in the morning and they're in Massachusetts and they're like, I have no idea what to do in Nigeria. Can people just donate?
People can donate. Go to equippingthepersecuted.org and partner with us today. And just talk about the problem. Let people know what's going on. Also, as part of our mission, as part of our project, I'm a truth seeker and teller, just like you, Tommy. We created a project as part of our mission called TruthNigeria.com. We have 15 of the biggest troublemaking journalists in Nigeria that are reporting on what's actually happening. And we are also being censored by the mainstream media. People will not pick up our stories, even though they are well sourced, well documented. We have all the evidence. We are reporting the news that the Nigerian government doesn't want reported on what's actually happening. So they can get better informed by going to truthnigeria.com as well.
Wait, what has happened to the people covering it? Because in the email, it sounded kind of similar to what happened to me early on. Just you get banned if you don't take it down. It's a demoralization thing. They make you delete it and apologize. Um, so if they, what is it? So it's just local journalists there are not allowed to cover it.
Well, what they're so this is how news works in a place like Nigeria.
Okay.
Okay. It's only covered if a government official calls a press conference. And then that government official pays journalists to show up to cover what they want covered. If the government official does not call a press conference, it never happened.
You.
And we have journalists that are reporting stories on what's going on. Several of our journalists have been detained by Nigerian equivalent to FBI. They've been detained by Nigerian police. Some of them have been beat up and have their cameras broken because they're reporting on touchy subjects that the government does not want out there. And so they are being repeatedly harassed and tailed by government officials. And we've had to call lawyers in several times to get them out to come alongside them. But this is an ongoing fight that happens every week with our journalists.
Would they be able to come on here, or is that kind of a, would they still get harassed for doing that?
No, no, I would love to. I'd love to arrange for one of our
Yeah,
journalists to
have them
come on
come
the
on.
show and talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'd love to make that happen.
No, and again, purely, and it's perhaps for selfish and ego reasons, I just hate censorship. And now, whenever I can punch back, I'm like, yeah, I don't even care what the topic is. Let's punch him in the gut. I hate censorship. It's just, it's just, it's just the pettiest, least masculine thing in the world to censor discussion. Um, for me, how did you? I know some of it, but how did you get into it? Because it is. I mean, you're in the United States. I'm in the United
Mhm.
States. It's not intuitive that you would be running this. I mean, other than the values of Christ and just doing the right thing. I get that, but it's unintuitive that you're running this thing. Just out of curiosity,
So,
how'd you get into it?
I in 2011 I went on a mission trip with my grandfather, who was an evangelist, and he was working with a mission in Nigeria. And I just fell in love with the people. Kept on going back and serving, trying to help any way I could. But what really led me to go the next level on this was I saw a lot of people talking about the problem. I saw a lot of organizations claiming they were helping persecuted Christians, but they really weren't there on the ground. They're coming in, getting photo ops, handing somebody $100, and then raising millions off the backs of persecuted Christians, but it wasn't actually going back to helping persecuted Christians. And I just started asking questions. And also, the other major thing is I asked a question. I said, "Hey, has anybody taught you guys basic self-defense skills, security awareness, emergency planning, what to do if an attack occurs, intelligence gathering? Has anybody taught you any of these skills?" And they all said no. I said, "Well, what if we created an organization that came in and come alongside you guys and helped you guys after attacks, but also helped you guys with training?" And they said, "We need this yesterday. When can we start?" So what separates us from other organizations is we actually pay attention to the security aspect of things. So we work with village security teams. We give them training. We give them radios. We teach them how to gather intelligence. We've put in village alarm systems. We're trying to proactively save lives instead of just waiting for the next attack and putting a band-aid on a situation. We're trying to do things that are trying to prevent attacks. And part of that part of that process is save tens of thousands of lives because we started really ramping up intelligence gathering techniques with village security teams. Pay attention, what to notice, how to, everyone talks, everyone can see certain signs of something coming. And so we started issuing terror alerts in 2024. We issued 60, was about 68 terror alerts in 2024, which were 89% accurate.
Wow.
And so we were able to provide warning to these villages that stuff was going to happen, stuff was going to occur, and it has saved tens of thousands of lives. No other organization has come in and done that. Most fake Christian organizations, they come in, wait for the tragedy to happen, come in, respond, but they're not taking a proactive measure and trying to stop it. So our goal at equipping the persecuted is to stop the persecution, not just show up when a tragedy happens. We don't want to see the tragedy happen at all.
Yeah, the people that come in for photo ops, they're gonna burn in the center of hell.
I
In terms,
agree.
yeah, dude, it is better to just not do anything. It's legitimately better to just be ignorant of it than to go in and photo op it. Um,
Well, they convince themselves they're raising awareness. So that
I
justifies the
mean,
millions of dollars raised because they're raising awareness.
I'm not
They're not getting their
omnipotent.
hands.
They can
Yeah.
defend that in front of God. I'm not omnipotent. Maybe there is some net plus there. I won't
Well,
touch that.
I look at things differently. I say, well, we have hands, feet, brains, and resources. Why not actually help our brothers and sisters out
Well, that's the
for real?
correct answer. That's the
That's how we're
correct.
supposed to do it.
Yeah. No, I just
So,
imagine you're sitting there with like an attorney talking to God, trying to defend it. And you're like, all right, maybe on some level you kind of increased awareness. Like you get like a C, you get a C minus. Um, but
yeah.
so in terms of because I was gonna ask, so rebuilding and everything, but yeah, no, I would imagine the primary thing would be to try to stop it from happening. The primary thing in let's say like New Orleans would be like let's rebuild the levee so that Katrina doesn't happen again. I mean,
Right.
it's good to have a response, state, local, federal, nonprofit, but it's a lot better. Let's just maybe like sidestep this issue entirely. Is how do you even, and I don't know if you can discuss it or if it's OPSEC or whatever, but how do you even do, like, I mean, I would imagine you have like former military guys on the ground or special forces guys or advisors here. How do you even go about that? Like, I wouldn't even know how to like give a warning other than like, I don't know, sitting in a watchtower with a spotlight in Nigeria and like, how do you even
Well,
do that?
so we get intel and then we issue the terror alerts and then it's created a network of leaders and people that it spreads through WhatsApp groups because that's how they communicate in Africa. They all use WhatsApp. So we send the terror alert out, and then it goes to a network of people that then go share it far and wide. And then calls are made to local leaders. Calls are made to the police, the local military. But the funny thing is, the police and military never intervene. I mean, very, very, very rarely intervene in an attack. They only show up after it happens. They could be 5 kilometers away hearing the gunshots and they still don't show up and defend the people. So we have on record, hey, we notified the government that this on this alert an attack took place and they never did anything. So we're also holding them accountable and documenting their lack of response, which also helps build up the credibility of saying, hey, something needs to be done international world,
Yeah.
you know, because the Nigerian government likes to lie to itself a lot. Um, they're underfunded, they're understaffed, but they do like to lie to themselves and pretend they did something that they didn't do all the time.
And this is not just, and I'm actually asking you, this is not just something that they do in general because they're understaffed and underfunded, where like they just can't cover every little thing, or is this specifically Christian persecution?
There's complicity. total complicity. For instance, we had reports of military coming into a town, disarming the people, and then in 2 hours later they get attacked.
Really?
We have instances where Army came into a town, told everybody to lay low, lay down, as they watch a whole band of terrorists drive by to go attack the next town.
So that's
We see this frequently, and we report about it. We talk about it. The government doesn't like it, but that's the truth. Now, some areas they are understaffed, underfunded, and can't respond. It'd be a suicide mission if they intervene. Some instances, we just know these military leaders and police officers are being paid off. We've run into instances where certain military and police officers rented their weapons to the terrorists, and the terrorists brought the weapons back after the attack. And the Christians are left defenseless.
Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with the solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
Yes, that's not even like loose complicity. That's, I would imagine that's pretty much indistinguishable from part of the organization.
Right.
To go to a town and say lay low, to go disarm, that's not even complete. That's you're part of the organization. It's one thing if you're like one thing if your buddy goes and robs a gas station, comes to your house covered in blood, and you let him stay, and you're gonna get hit for being accessory. Versus when you're the guy with the car idling outside with the mask on, that's not accessory. You're part of the thing. You're part of the operation.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who let him stay at your apartment, he'll get some punishment, but he could argue it's my friend. I don't know. If you're sitting outside in the car with a mask on, you're part of it. That's being part of it. That is being part of it. That's not that's not loosely looking the other way. You're part of the. It's a military operation. You're part of it. Part of the necessary thing for its success against to slaughter was to disarm and to tell the other places to lay
Right.
low. That's not even like that's not loose relation. That's part of the organization.
Right. And so we've seen these instances. It's like I said, very rarely does the military and police fight back. Sometimes they do, but very rarely. And it's the citizens armed with homemade shotguns versus terrorists with AK-47s and other military style weapons. And that's what the Christians are defending themselves with is single shot homemade shotguns.
Yeah, that's good against like one person primarily because you could maybe scare them away. That's not going to be effective
Yeah.
against even an unexperienced person with an AK.
Well, that's why something needs to be done. That's why I'm on your show and
Yeah.
talking about this. It's we do need a better intervention. I mean, what we're doing is we're saving lives the best we can, and what we are doing is definitely working and has shown a great effect. But we do need a better intervention and more interference on what's going on. And for very, very little, the U.S. could get involved and take these guys out real fast in the grand scheme of things compared to what we're spending in the Ukraine and spending on all these other wars. The problem in Nigeria could get dealt with like that.
I feel like you could deal with it not even with like boots on the ground. You just sanction. I mean, that's such a
Yes.
tiny underdeveloped country. It's not like when they sanction Russia and it like kind of doesn't do anything because they're a multi-trillion-dollar economy too. This is something where you would actually break the back.
Yeah. Like I said, for very little, I mean, you could get things to change real fast.
Yeah.
But what we had in the Biden administration that was completely ignoring the problem and calling it climate change. We need to get a new narrative back in the our State Department, especially when it comes to Africa policy, which I'm praying and hoping, and I've been talking to State Department officials and speaking with our U.S. Embassy in Abuja that we get some clear direction and some movement fast.
What is the U.S. Embassy? What is their read on it?
Currently, there's a lot of Biden holdovers in the U.S. Embassy. They haven't. I haven't seen much change or hope there yet, if you will. We need a much stronger foreign policy, especially in a country like Nigeria. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa.
Do they have Is it Nairobi? Is that Nigeria or is that Ethiopia?
No, Nairobi is in Kenya.
Kenya. I'm not even remotely correct.
Yeah, yeah. Abuja, Nigeria is the capital, and then the other big oil city and industry is Lagos in Nigeria.
I took a stab and my ignorance came up.
It's all right.
I went for it.
Okay.
I saw the opening. I took the 3-pointer and I got the shack smacked back in my face. I broke my neck with a basketball.
I get it. I get it. Sometimes I get confused myself. So
hey, shoot or shoot, man. You got to go for it. But like, yeah. So I was gonna say when you said you were documenting everything, my first reaction was like, that's probably not gonna do anything because they seem to not care. But it does make sense when you put it in the light of building a case to show to the international community. Because like, if the government is willing to be complicit and to ignore and punish those who report genocide of Christians, they're also not going to care if you go, hey, we're seeing what you're doing. But there is kind of a higher level you could go to. If anything, I mean, yeah, I mean, the most realistic thing would be, I know nothing about this. I don't know what the protocols are or how frequent it's done. But I feel like the most basic, in my 34-year-old podcaster wisdom, not, I'm a geopolitical chess master. I would imagine the most basic thing would be like sanctions, right?
Yeah, sanctions. You would hurt them real fast because there is a large Nigerian diaspora here in the U.S. That sends a lot of money back to Nigeria. If you put a stop on that, you cripple things real fast. If you put sanctions on Nigerian government officials and diplomats from traveling to the U.S. and got some other European countries to take part of that, you'd see things change real fast.
Yeah, you kind of have to use their structure to your advantage. And I think like a lot of these, for lack of a better term, for a lot of these kind of second and third world shitholes, the way to go is to sanction, because the poverty is not uniform. The people in charge also live very cushy. It's like the most effective sanction, or one of the
Oh,
most effective against North Korea, was not letting Kim Jong Un buy Hennessy, because he was like the biggest consumer of
right.
Hennessy. Sometimes it's like you have to use whatever their system is to your advantage. I would imagine, sanctions against Dubai would really work if you said you're not allowed to buy Lamborghinis. That would actually, it's comical, but it works.
Yeah, it would work. And like I said, for very little, if we just had the willpower and a little bit of aggressive foreign policy, things would change overnight, and just predicated on the safety of Christians in Nigeria. Stop allowing godless thugs to run around and murder people and burn them alive. It is not that difficult.
It's pretty basic. I
And if
think,
you force Nigeria to have the willpower to take care of it, a lot of lives would be saved.
yeah. So that's the ideal, is
Mm-hmm.
is to sanction, but that's also just being realistic. It's also it's a Hail Mary. It's just for anything, for someone like you or I to somehow get the attention of, let alone a reaction of, somebody in like the current administration or any administration. It's pretty difficult, but it's definitely something that I think we can try to do, and I can at the very least try with this podcast to do,
Thank
for
you.
like teaching self defense, and for teaching, or even for giving alerts. And again, I have no idea if I would be able to move the needle even a percentage point, but I do know, like, tons of special forces guys. Do you use stuff like that, even just like advising, to where they give
Yeah.
you like a, how do you do, if you can talk about that?
No, we have advisors. We have advisors, and I have brought them into Nigeria. And we work on a little bit of training the trainers. Um, that that goes a long way. But I say our most effective end of things is intelligence gathering, and the warning systems, and putting that stuff in place. The village alarm systems have been successful. I mean, you know, if a tornado comes through your town, unless you're what was it, St. Louis. If a tornado comes through your town, someone's going to hit a button. They're going to warn you that a major disaster is coming. Like this happens in every town across America,
Yeah.
except for St. Louis, because you know what happened there. But they don't have that system in Nigeria. They don't have that infrastructure. So what we've done is we've got like a solar powered, battery operated alarm system. Someone can hit a button, got sirens up.
So it's a literal alarm.
It's a literal alarm.
I wasn't sure if it was like text messages, or
No, literal
it's an
alarm.
actual, like,
An actual alarm.
yeah.
Go put one of these in village, and these have been very successful.
I would,
Um,
I would
Giving
imagine that's the first
communications,
thing they try to destroy.
yeah, but giving communications to village security teams. We've given them radios to communicate.
So
Little things like this, I mean, have just really have worked. And we're not a huge organization, but with the little we have, we've stretched it, and we have done a lot and saved a lot of lives. Since our inception 5 years ago, we've helped over 400,000 persecuted Christians.
I'm just trying to think of. I also have to be like careful whenever I do shows, because I'll get really excited and I'll start being like, "Oh, I can put you in touch with this person and that person."
That's all right. It's all
No,
right.
but I always have to like check myself and be like, I have no idea if they're interested or if they're willing to give a minute of time. So I don't want to like get you psyched up and be like, "Oh, Tommy's gonna put me," like, I have no idea. Like, I might text somebody, they might tell me to go pound sand.
I I've been around for so long. If something happens, it happens. It doesn't, it
Yeah.
doesn't. I go in with no expectations.
Yeah.
But but I can tell you that thank you for bringing me on, help me get the word
Yeah.
out about what's happening. But those listening, we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, that is kind of the upside of when a situation is so screwed. Like, kind of the upside of being at like rock bottom is like it's so easy to make meaningful changes,
Yes.
Like whenever I was at like the worst places in my life, the tiniest things made a noticeable change in my, like, all right, well, hey, stop drinking alcohol. Number one. All right, number two, go brush your teeth. Number three, open the blinds and make your bed. Whereas if you do, if you're like a successful person, those are probably just background things you don't even think about. Like, yeah, brush my teeth. But for people that have been in, horrible depressive ruts, which we all have, little tiny a haircut and like washing the dishes can legitimately make like a 10 percentage point change in your life. So the
Yeah.
upside of this being so screwed is that little tiny things actually probably can make a meaningful difference in somebody's life, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We see real results. We see real results every day
Yeah.
of people that we're helping, and looking at how their lives have changed, and helping people that are in very dire need and in dire situation. I mean, we're saving lives every week through our work, and it's one life at a time. We can look at the big problem and be like, I myself can't tackle the giant problem, but I know what I can do is that I can save and help one life at a time.
Yeah. That's all you can do. You
and,
can't
and,
get
and that's what keeps us going.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps me going, because there were times where I've fallen into a depression of just like, this attack that happened over Father's Day weekend.
Sure.
I'm just going, Lord, what do I do?
Yeah. No, I get that. That happens
What
to
do
me.
I
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
And it's just go through our thing. Let's go. Let's assess the situation, find the survivors, find the most needy that we can help right now, and let's help them right now. And that's what we've been doing. And but I would just rather see these attacks not happen.
Yeah.
So we fight it on the ground locally, one life at a time, but we also have to fight it up here geopolitically and hit it at both ends.
Yeah. No, it's not all for naught to try to do something at the top level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I think most people do, not admittedly not nearly as intense as, stopping genocide, but just for whatever it is, a lot of things. So what's that quote? We overestimate what we can do in a day, but underestimate what we can do in a year.
Mhm.
Like I've been lifting weights since 2003, 22 years, and I never work out for longer than 20 minutes because that's how I keep it regular. If you go talk to someone like I lift weights 5 hours a day, yeah, you maybe do that 2 days in a row, and then you wake up one day even slightly less enthusiastic. You're like, I'm not doing that, but because I
Right.
know I'm gonna go do it for 20 minutes, I'm like, okay, I can. My lazy ass can go do 20 minutes, and because of that, that has allowed me to stick with it. 2+ decades.
And you feel better for it.
Oh yeah, so much better. And whenever I try to like dial it up, you'd be like, well, I'm gonna start doing this, that, and the other thing. It lasts for like a week, and then what I find, this is the most important part, is as soon as like the burden becomes larger, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, even though sure, if you did a week of working out 40 minutes, that's equal to two 20-minute workouts. So sure, in 1 week you've done 2 weeks worth of workouts. The coming months though, if you actually graph it, and I have, you do a lot less because you're much more prone to go, I'm not doing that today. I don't have 40 minutes in me. And because of that, even though you're doing 40 minutes, the irregularity that you do it, if you were to just stick to 20 minutes cumulatively over the course of a month, a year, whatever, you will actually end up doing so literally like you will do more push-ups, you will do more pull-ups
Yeah.
if you just stick to the tiniest thing a day. And sometimes I'll get, all worked up and, helpless about either losing weight or sobriety or anything, or doing the podcast, and it always comes back to look what's ahead of you right here today, and just do a little bit. And if you just keep doing a little bit each day, don't blink, because it'll be 12 months, 24 months, 36 months, and all of a sudden you'll go, wow, I feel like I just did episode 1500. I feel like I just did episode 1000, and they add up very quickly. So, and I know that those are much less intense, experiences as opposed to stopping actual genocide, but I can't help but imagine there's probably some similarity to, if you stuck solely to, I'm going to get President Trump to put a sanction on them, you could go at that all day, every day. And I would imagine within time, even the most passionate person, you'd burn out and you'd stop doing anything. And over the course of years or decades, even if you prevented, let's say, one death a week, man, that's 52 a year. That's 520 a decade. Very quickly, you'd add up to be like, you probably should have just stuck to what you were doing. So yeah, no, I definitely understand that abstractly, to not get overwhelmed. And then I'm sure, yeah, you see something like this past weekend, and it probably knocks the wind out of you. You're like, what am I What am I even doing? I mean, do you get that? Do you get the hopelessness?
So at times you just get overwhelmed. You get overwhelmed by it, but it's just I just go back to my thing, one life at a time, one life at a time. How can we do that? But it's but it's also keeping the big picture in mind. Um, get through that, but you have the goal up here, but one life at a time down here.
Yeah. So people can visit the website. They can donate money. Um, and yeah, even basic things like rate. What else are they, if you don't mind me asking? What else are like the more simplistic things? So like alarm. You have to buy that. Um,
Yep.
teaching self defense. What goes into that?
Bringing the people in, bringing people over to Nigeria, and organizing and taking care of the groups of people while we're there and feeding them and accommodations. And they don't have money. These people are running on fumes. They're running on nothing. So to bring them in for that stuff, we have to take care of all that. We got to pay for the food and accommodations for these guys, and make sure they're well taken care of, and then equip them, radios, bulletproof vests, things like that. We can't give guns. We cannot get involved in that. Otherwise, I'd be put in prison somewhere for doing that. But we do everything we can legally to help our persecuted brothers and sisters. And the other thing is someone can call their senator or congressman and tell them, hey, intervene on behalf of persecuted Christians in Nigeria. This has to stop. And while you're at it, maybe let's get some good conservatives appointed in our U.S. embassy. And let's maybe get a new ambassador that has a set of cojones.
Yeah, that's perhaps my own naivety. I'm a little surprised there's not something from the embassy because, and again, maybe I'm just indoctrinated and love the United States, but I always feel like the U.S. does something for good in the world, and that's kind of depressing.
Well, the people I met with were bragging about how they were mad that USAID is not there anymore because interfaith dialogue meetings were so successful. And I had to tell them to their faces that interfaith dialogue meetings don't do anything. And if you look at all the big interfaith dialogue meetings that were sponsored by the United States government, there's always an attack that followed a week later from people that were in those interfaith dialogue meetings. And also I said my grand story about dealing and looking at USAID so after a village is attacked, Christians are put into what they call IDP camps, which stands for internally displaced person. All right. It's just a piece of land, maybe one small structure. And the government says, live here now, build a new life, have fun. They have nothing, no resources. And there's trash, feces. It is the most disgusting atmosphere you could ever imagine. And so we've been doing the work with one of these IDP camps for a long time, doing medical interventions and sending doctors in to help them. And one time I show up and there's 5 brand new huge garbage cans with USAID stickers slapped on the side of them. Okay. 5 giant garbage cans essentially inside of a dump with no place to put the trash after these garbage cans are filled. There's no mechanism to put the trash somewhere. It is just 5 brand new garbage cans with USAID stickers put in the middle of a dump. That's what I saw. And I asked the camp head, I said, did USAID come in with anything else? Did they bring any food? Did they do anything? And they said, no. They came in, they showed up, and they brought these garbage cans. That's it. So I had a few nice words with our folks at the U.S. Embassy. And I said, USAID hasn't done jack squat here. And they were bragging about interfaith dialogue meetings. I said, if you guys can't even acknowledge the enemy and the people that are doing the killing of innocent Christians, nothing is going to change here. So that was my talk with the U.S. Embassy. The other thing is that most of our ambassadors in embassies across the country, if they are not presidentially appointed, They are career foreign service officers that have been part of the bureaucracy since they got out of college. And they just work their way from one country to another country to another country to another country with no regard to what's actually happening in the country. It's just another notch on their bureaucratic belt. So, as a country, we need to change how we do U.S. missions, who we put in embassies. Because I can guarantee you the current ambassador is not carrying a Trump policy. He's not a conservative. These guys are career foreign service officers that are bureaucrats.
Yeah, that's something like a story like that is kind of, I guess, my counterpoint to USAID. Like, I get the idea of, like, I don't know, like an image that was circulating around a lot was like, it was like an MRE, and it was like paid for by the people of the United States. I'm like, yeah, that is objectively a good thing. Like, I get that, and
Right.
you look at the total funding as compared to the U.S. military. Like, yeah, I get it, and I think on the surface, you get that's probably a good thing that we shouldn't cut. Its yearly budget is like that of a helicopter. Like, I get that, but then you go, but that's not what's happening. If it
No,
really was just MREs in cases of water, and I like Trump, I voted for Trump, and they cut that, I'd be like, hey man, it is a Christian value to be your brother's keeper. Like
I agree.
we
Yeah.
like, but it's not that.
No.
It's 5 garbage cans in a place that doesn't have a garbage service, and they're
Yeah.
not magical garbage
Yeah.
cans.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't vaporize the garbage.
Yeah.
It's just five cans.
Another UN organization came into this camp. They built them a latrine with no mechanism to empty the latrine.
That's what I mean.
So,
Is like
so in a matter of a month, the whole thing is overflowing. I saw this.
with shit. Yeah,
I saw this, and I was like, did they come in with a truck to empty this thing to put it somewhere? No, they just built them a latrine and then left.
yeah, it's give a man a fish type thing. It's not.
It's so the paradigm has to change.
Yeah.
And that's, so I'm using my big mouth to advocate for that. But, but if someone wants to actually do something and help, donate to equippingthepersecuted.org, because we're actually doing it on the ground.
Yeah, it's the paradigm has to change, but then there's always kind of like the more realistic thing where it's like, well, what are the chances of it changing? And they're slim, but they're not nothing. You're already doing my counterpoint. My counterpoint would be do things on the ground and in the background, try to get something on the bigger level, but understand it might not happen. But
Yep.
you're already doing it in the same way I do the podcast. Like early on when I would start the show, I'd always be trying to get huge guests because in my mind that would hit it and then it would take off. And what I've
Right.
learned over the years is not really, honestly. And it's kind of a sobering thing to realize, but like people don't care about big guests, and I mean like big guests. Like I've had on like Apollo astronauts who've walked on the moon. I've Roseanne Barr. Like
Yeah.
it's like a novelty, but people would much rather consistent daily episodes with anyone and everyone, and something that is unique to you as the podcaster. What are you bringing to the table, right? If I
Yeah.
have someone on to cover Israel Iran, that's not exactly breaking news in the sense that I'm breaking the news. That is the only discussion on the planet right now.
Right.
What I've found is like, yeah, go for the big ones. Occasionally throw a Hail Mary, see if it lands, and sometimes it does, and it's cool. But it is far more beneficial to just put your head down and just do the daily work in front of you and build up your own podcast audience, unique voice, blah blah blah, all the hallmark shit.
Consistency. It's
Yeah.
consistency and tenacity. Like starting this organization, it's just tenacity and consistency. That's how you build anything.
It's
And
the
that's,
it's the Calvin Coolidge quote
Yeah.
about persistence. I actually just it made me read a book on him because I didn't know anything about him. I'm gonna find the quote right now and read it because I think it's legitimately worth reading. But I think it's the best quote. Press on. Nothing in the world can take the place of persistence. Talent will not. Nothing is more common than unsuccessful men with talent. Genius will not, because unrewarded genius is almost a proverb. Education will
Right.
not. The world is full of educated derelicts. Persistence and determination alone are omnipotent. The slogan, press on, has solved and always will solve the problems of the human race. And I know it's an accurate, I mean, he said it, I mean, but I know it's rooted in reality because it's the unsexy answer that is always the correct one. You get in there working out, oh, I saw this shortcut. Nope, there's not a shortcut. Well, I can take the supplement. That's a steroid. That's going to kill you.
Hmm.
If you find a workout where it goes, it says if I just stick to it every day, gruelingly, 20 minutes a day for a decade on end and eat egg whites, that I might build biceps. That sounds miserable. I go, that's the one that's going to work. Do it. Because
Exactly.
there is no shortcut. It's
Exactly.
there. I think Shaq said that when he first made a ton of money in the NBA. He was looking for a financial advisor because he was young and dumb. He said all these guys were coming in. They're all, they're all, coked up. They're all, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. And he's like, and he goes, and then I brought in this man who's this tiny old Jewish man. And I said, what are your plans? And he said, government bonds and blue chip stocks. Over 10 years, we might be able to add 5% to your net worth. And he goes, that's my guy. Because that's the real answer. I think he goes, so what'd you do? He goes, shalom. But like, that's the answer is
Right.
it's not, it doesn't work that way. If the answer is, do a little bit, go on podcasts, try to get awareness, try to get a couple donations, give them radios and alarm systems. That's the answer. And it's the answer no
Right.
one wants, but it's the answer that has solved and always will solve the human race's woes. It's just what it is. And,
Yeah.
it is a noble thing. And we'll kind of wrap it up with there's a guy I have on the show a lot, Basil Baz, former CIA paramilitary guy, just badass special forces guy, and he runs ARC, the Association for the Recovery of Children. He's been running it since 1993, and they recover trafficked kids. And he's like, no part of me has any delusion that I will stop trafficking on a global level, that I will even stop it in this state. But for every child I have rescued, they do not look at my efforts as futile. They look at it as
Right.
I was trafficked and being raped by men 40 times a day, and now I'm not. It's not
Hmm.
futile. So I would imagine for every person you saved, I highly doubt they look at it as futile. And I think that they probably have relayed that to you, but in case it hasn't been, I would try to
Yeah.
remember that it is absolutely not futile. And yeah,
That's it.
man, we'll try to get it going. I'll send it to some people. I'll try to get people again, I can't promise anything. What I can promise though is my podcast is yours to use as a platform. You want to come back on, you want to bring journalists on, you want to send journalists here solo, you do whatever you want, man. I'll have them on. We'll
Sure.
talk about it. I'm happy to do it because I can't hear this and then go, oh, that's bad. I go, no, I have a podcast. What can I do? Well, realistically, I can give somebody an hour. That's what I can do. And so I'm more than happy to help. I don't know how helpful I will be, but I'm more
Well,
than happy to help.
well, we'll be reaching out again, and I'll connect you with one of our journalists, and I think you'll find his story very, very compelling, and dealing with the censorship that he's had to go through, and the being roughed up by police officers for trying to share the truth. And he's been shot at, he's been in attacks, and he survived. This guy's been through hell, but I would love to bring him on your show and have him talk about what's going on.
Please have him on, man. I'd, I'd,
All
I'd,
right.
I'd I'd love it. As I told you before the show, I never had any idea what I'm doing when I start the show. Just go in and we wing it and see where it lands. Um, But yeah, dude, I will get the link. I'll put it in the description. This will be up tomorrow, I believe, and I will send it to you. Do not be
Awesome.
a stranger. Absolutely, bring people back on, and we'll try to get it out. Even if that, even if people know they can come on and talk. That alone might be, I don't know, some solace that
Yeah.
the Nigerian government can't censor me, and I hope they try because screw them. They're losers. Do something.
Amen.
Do something. Yeah. No, I've become friends with enough military guys. I feel like I can actually say that. Like, do something. Yeah, I'll tell my Delta Force buddies.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll try to get something going. We'll try to get a couple bucks, a couple of radios, anything, and you know, if not, I'll at the very least be able to continue to offer you my platform. But Mr.
All
Salt,
right.
thank you so much for your time. Judd, not Jude. For everybody listening, it's not.
Yeah.
It is not Jude. It is not Judge. It is Judd. And it's also
Judd.
Carrigan, not
Just
Carrington.
Judd.
Just
Yeah.
Judd. It's not Carrington. It's not
And
Cardigan.
it's Saul, not Saul.
It is welcome Judd
Saul.
Saul. Yeah, you sound
Yeah.
like an
Judd Saul.
yeah, you sound like an up and coming sheikh in the United Arab Emirates. Today we have Judd Saul. If you came
Judd
on
Saul.
just in flowing robes and covered your eyes, I don't know, maybe we get some more attention. Maybe we
Yeah.
did that if like Tommy had a sheikh on his podcast.
Yeah. Next time I'll wear my Nigeria outfit.
Yeah. We'll put a green screen and we'll give you like a gold Bentley in the background. I'll be like, "Thank you for coming, Sheikh. Thank you for coming. I hope the war is going well for you." But dude,
All right.
appreciate your time. You're doing the Lord's work. Not that you need to be told that from me, but you are, and more than happy to help in any minuscule way that I can.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
God bless
brother.
you. Thanks.
You as well. Thank you so much.